Welcome to Brain Health Matters, a show dedicated to helping you improve your health, master your mind, and boost your brain. I'm your host, Kate Kunkel, and in this week's show, we're chatting with Allison Davies, a neurologic music therapist who says she obsesses over the relationship between music and the brain because the connection between them is off the charts. You're not going to want to miss this brilliant show, so stay tuned.
Brain Health Matters is brought to you by The Musical Brain, Book 3 in the Healthy Brain series. Enjoy the fun and easy practices in this book to improve your memory, sharpen focus, and master your mind with the healing power of music. Available on Amazon everywhere.
Allison Davies is a music for the brain specialist who creates online resources for parents and educators. She works with schools to deliver professional development around the topics of childhood, brain development, and the use of music to support brain function and reduce anxiety for children and their parents. Welcome, Allie. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.
It was so, I don't even know how I found you. It was like one of those things looking for, I know what it was. It was looking for brain health for kids because we don't talk about it enough for kids, I don't think. What do you think about
Yeah,
that?
I agree. I think we don't talk about brain health or brain care anywhere near as much as we should. It should be one of the most major parts of the conversation about anxiety.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because
Mm.
people like we have it. It only takes up what, 5% of our weight, but it takes up 25% of our calories, our energy, and people just ignore it until something goes wrong. And then all of a sudden it's important.
I agree. I find that the exact same thing. And I find that brain care is just so simple and so common sense. And you really only need moments of it. You don't have to change your life. You just need to understand what it means
Thank
and
you so
understand
much for
what our
that.
yeah. Our brain is just like a person. It's very simple, really, with the things it does like and the things it doesn't like.
Exactly. That's what I say all the time. It's not rocket science. This is so simple. It's just the same thing you do to look after a plant. You water, you feed it well, you give it sunshine.
Exactly. Or a newborn baby. It's exactly the same. I completely agree with you.
So we are definitely on the same page. Now, you have a great deal of experience in the traditional music therapy world. You even became something called a neurologic music therapist. What does that mean before we go on?
Okay. Well, I was a music therapist, a registered music therapist in Australia for 16 years. Um, and sort of a few, it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I trained with the Academy of Neurologic Music Therapy. They're based in Canada, and became a neurologic music therapist. So that means that I sort of specialize in understanding the relationship between music and the brain, and using music as a tool for specific brain-based rehabilitation or outcomes.
So for rehabilitation from trauma or from something else that you would be working with
Lots
or
of lots and lots of different areas. Anything that impacts the brain, or that we could support the brain to function differently or have some improved capacity or anything like that, we can use music for. So, for example, I did a lot of melodic intonation therapy, which is a specific therapy or modality for people who've lost their speech because of a brain injury or a stroke or similar. And melodic intonation therapy is where someone can't speak anymore, but they can still sing. And this is very, very common. And we can probably talk about this. I used to work a lot in dementia care, and it's not like a miracle when someone can't speak, but they can still sing. It's just like everyone. It's so common.
yeah, it's the last part of
So,
our brain to go, right? It's
yeah,
when everything else happens and we can't speak or perhaps even remember our names or our spouses, we still have that capacity for music, which tells me, and I'm sure it does you too, that this is such an important part of our brain. That part that holds on to that.
yeah. Because song lyrics and music is stored deeply in our long-term memory, which is easily triggered and brought back to the surface when we feel an emotion. And we don't lose emotions. That's not something that sort of declines. um in fact, oh, I'm getting off track already, but when we experience music, there's research that proves this. When we experience music, either by listening to it, hearing it, or even thinking about it, more parts of our brain become active simultaneously than when we experience any other thing, anything.
Isn't that amazing? That means it's so good for inspiring neurological growth and plasticity.
Yeah, it's the ultimate brain health tool. And so when I was a neurologic music therapist, I thought, like, because I love this. I love the relationship between music and the brain. And I loved learning the content and doing the course and doing the training. But then in reality, when I started working as a neurologic music therapist, I felt because it's very science-based. And as a music therapist, in all the years I've been doing it, it's combined with it's social and emotional and spiritual and behavioral and communicative and cognitive, and there's all these different elements of ourselves that we bring into the process of being a music therapist. But neurologic music therapy is very much like a science-based
Modality.
I guess. Yeah. So
Yes.
I guess the only way I can describe it is it started to feel like the atheism of music therapy in a way. I just felt like there's no real space here for spiritual or emotional change to take place. It's all very much based on science. So I am sort of moved away from being a neurologic music therapist as well. And then in fact last year I deregistered as a music therapist. So I'm no longer a registered music therapist in Australia, and I have moved towards researching as opposed to being a therapist.
So what do you research then?
What I'm really interested in at the moment with my research is I keep flitting around. I was going to go back to university and do a PhD, and then I realized that kind of patriarchal structure is not really what I've just gotten out of one. Like out of the allied health system, and I just didn't want to step back in. So I'm now studying with an independent mentor, but because now I've got this freedom to choose, I'm flitting between different things. What really drove me to leave the allied health industry is that I feel I'm at a point in my life now where I feel that I am not best offering myself when I am working with individual people to sort of fix themselves or change themselves, when out here in the society we're in and the culture that we live in, there is discrimination and racism and homophobia and misogyny and all of the things that are causing people to experience trauma. So I really felt, and this doesn't mean I think music therapy, there's definitely a place for it. I loved it. I love it. I still love it. But I felt very much that my next stage is now to work in changing societal expectations and societal norms as a way of protecting people from necessarily needing therapy in the first place.
What a novel way of dealing with it, to get out there, because it seems that most people look within. It's my fault. I just interviewed a lady and she calls it shame guilt, where we incorporate these expectations, these things that make us feel less. And so that carries through into so many parts of our lives. And of course, it affects our brains and our abilities to make decisions, to plan, all of those things.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think such an enormous part of the reason we experience that is because of this modern Western culture that we live in, which is the expectations are too high, that we're meant to achieve in certain ways. We're meant to do all these amazing things, and it's like a race to success. And we're meant to do things that the brain was not designed to do. The brain was designed to keep us alive. And what we're doing is living in a world that's trying to push us to achieve more, or to make more money, or to have more jobs, or to do more things with our kids, and to be just amazing. But we can't be amazing when we're pushing our brain to work in ways that it wasn't designed to. We end up in therapy. And, I experience this on a personal level because I'm autistic and my children are neurodivergent as well. And I really as I started going through the process when my daughter was diagnosed with autism, and we sort of just, got shuffled down the channel of allied health specialists, as you do, and we had great therapists, amazing therapists, but I really quickly saw that this whole sort of process then of having therapy was really to help autistic people be more like non-autistic people. And it felt so wrong. It felt like such a problem. It felt like this is the problem. The problem is this industry that's trying to assimilate people to be more like these normal people, as if that's such a thing. And it's really dangerous.
I was just going to say normal. Whose definition of normal
exactly.
there?
I know, but there's still such this, right now it's Autism Awareness Month. And so everyone's talking about autism in a way that just makes me think, imagine if we had like non-autism awareness month.
I want to get back to you just the way you say it on your website is neurodivergent. And I think that's an important word because people don't really understand that this is a way of thinking, a way of being. It's not a way of doing or achieving.
Yes. I think of, the words autism and ADHD and all those kind of words. I think of them as descriptive words. So it's definitely not a disorder. I never put the D on the ends of those things because they're not disorders, they're neurotypes. So a word like autism describes my brain, how my brain works. And that's it. And neurodivergent, so I love the word neurodiverse and neurodivergent. So neurodiverse refers to the whole world. So this world is a neurodiverse world. All of us, neurodiversity is the normal. Like it is normal for us all to have different neurotypes.
Sure.
And I love that definition because it really it's just beautiful imagery for me. It sort of straight up shows that there's no one sort of normal brain and then there's people with disorders. It's just the normal thing is for us all to have these various types of brains, neurotypes. And then neurodivergent is the word for a neurotype that is not the neurotypical, but even I don't like that word at all because I feel sorry for those people who are considered neurotypical because what a horrible way to be described. And also there's a lot of trauma in the world and I really feel like I don't think the majority of the world is what they call neurotypical. But that's just my perspective.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I agree with you 100% there, but I would like to address this with respect to music, especially. How can we use music to enhance, to appreciate, to nurture those things about us that are different and make it and use it in some way to help us if we want to adapt?
I think what it comes down to is about the brain feeling safe. So I believe that the most important thing is to use music, and this is what I focus on, using music as a tool for safety. If the brain feels safe, it's in control. And if it's in control, it's not in survival mode. Because the brain, as you know, the brain has no idea between the difference of a real danger and a perceived danger. So I could be over here in the ocean with a shark swimming next to me and my brain goes into survival mode because I'm not safe. Or I could be over here trying to go to school, but there's a sensory problem because there's too much noise and my brain goes into the exact same response as it does with the shark.
Yes.
The brain does not know the difference between real danger and perceived danger. So I believe for no matter what our neurotype is, if we can use music and many other resources in the world, but we're here talking about music, if we use music to support the brain and the nervous system and the body to experience a sense of safety or to perceive a sense of safety, even if what's going on around us is chaotic. A lot of people right now in the world are in chaos, around them isn't safe, but we can still create environments that allow the brain to perceive a sense of safety, and then we give it the best sort of opportunity of not being in survival mode or feeling in control and being able to sort of move in and out of that state of survival mode. We don't have to aim to be just constantly regulated, We just have to find ways of flowing in and out of survival mode, which is what all humans do, rather than trying to just keep going into this elevated, heightened state of arousal where we end up so heightened, or we end up shut down and not being able to sort of move from that state at all.
So what kind of music, how do you use music to achieve that then? Like singing, chanting?
There's so many different ways. Let's separate melody and rhythm for a moment. So melody, in a nutshell, it's more complex than this, but melody goes with emotion and rhythm goes with physical movement or movement. So when we experience melody, when we hear melody, or when we think a melody in our tune, in our head, when we're just sort of humming a tune and thinking about it in our head, or we're listening to something melodic. And when I say melodic, I mean like, you know, something with a tune that moves. And the most melodic music is, you know, stuff from the movies, soundtracks, musical theatre, opera, anything that was written or designed to make you feel things. That music will always be melodic, because in the brain, the relationship between melody and emotion is really strong. So when we experience melody, our limbic system becomes active, which allows us to experience emotion. And when we experience emotion, it means it's moving and flowing through us. Emotion quite literally means energy in motion. So it has to move. And the problem is with us adults especially, and especially in this Western culture, we feel something and then we hold it in. Like, we're not allowed to express it. We're not allowed to cry in the workplace. Maybe we can cry at this person for 10 minutes, but then we need to like stop and pull ourselves together. You know, even grief has been listed in the DSM-5 now. Prolonged grief is considered a mental health disorder. It's ridiculous.
Insane.
We are meant to allow our emotions to move, and children are brilliant at this. Children will scream and say no and cry all the time. And then if they do it a lot, they get called emotionally dysregulated. But what they're doing is regulating themselves by allowing the emotion to move through. Children are good at it. Us adults are bad at it. And we need to find more ways every day to allow ourselves to experience emotion, because we get this feeling, we feel something, no matter whether it's a nice feeling or a hard feeling, it doesn't matter. If we hold it inside, we become pent up and pent up and pent up and pent up with all of these emotions that keep coming throughout the days and the weeks and the months, and they'll just all add up, and eventually it'll be a meltdown, or you know, an aggressive outburst, or it'll come out in a way that we don't want. So emotions need to be moved. So when we experience melody, the limbic system becomes active and we experience emotions. It doesn't mean we're always going to cry and sob, but sometimes we might. Sometimes it might just be a feeling, a really nice feeling, or a sad feeling, or a melancholy feeling, but we're feeling something, and just the feeling of it allows it to move through us so that it doesn't become pent up. And when our emotions are moving through us and they're not becoming pent up, the brain feels safe, because when we are pent up with all of these emotions, the brain starts to feel like something's going on here. This is heavy, like what the heck? And it moves into survival mode.
Gotcha. So we want to then use music with melody, something with melody. How about you said separate from that is rhythm. Do we also use rhythm then?
So one of the strongest relationships in the brain is between the motor cortex and what we hear. So what we hear greatly influences how we move physically. That's why like, you know, if we're listening to fast music as we drive the car, we speed.
And that's why if we're listening to fast music, when we're eating, we have digestive problems because we eat faster and we don't even know that we've eaten.
Exactly. Yes. And it's why, you know, if we go to the ballet, we're not going to jump up and down, we're going to sway. Or if we go to a hip hop concert, we're going to jump up and down. Our brain tells us, it tells our body, it entrains our body in sync with the rhythms that it hears in the environment. When we understand that our body entrains with rhythms, we can start to find music that replicates the resting heart rate. So we might look for music that's 60 to 80 beats per minute, or even 80 to 100, beats per minute. And there's this great principle that music therapists use called the ISO principle, which means we use music to match where we're at. So if we are in a heightened state, or someone is angry or really intensely emotional and they're in a heightened state, then we would not come in with this beautiful Zen calming whale sounds music, because that would just make things worse. They would feel unheard, unseen, invalidated. So we would match the intensity. So we might use fast music to match this intense state. And we might use a playlist, might have one or two fast, intense songs, and then the next song is slower or softer or more gentle. And then the next song again is slower again. And that allows the body to fall in sync with the rhythm, connect with it. And then because our body has entrained with the rhythm, then it just comes down, 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 gently, like stepping off a ladder together.
Right, because it's just annoying. If you're feeling agitated or angry, it's really just annoying to have something really sweet and sappy. Like it's just,
Totally.
it doesn't fit at all.
There's a lot of people who use this idea of the relaxation genre, and I don't really believe that there is a genre of relaxation music, because depending on your state of your nervous system or where you're at, some music will be relaxing no matter what style it is, and some won't. And so I think it's really important when we're looking at music to support our brain to feel safe, that we always tap into our own personal musical identity, because every single person will have their own musical identity. We develop it as an adolescent, and it's important to use music that works for us.
Exactly.
And when people say, do you have like songs that might help my kids or whatever, and I'm like, no, like you actually need to like work out what music they like and go from there.
What can we do to nurture that so that their brains are healthier as they get older? Because I really believe, this is my personal opinion, that the sooner we get them using music as a tool for better health, the better.
Yeah, this is something that I'm really tapping into in my research, because the barrier to children exploring their musicality and allowing it to become a therapeutic tool for them is usually the fact that the parents don't feel like they are musical. And so they don't sing with their kids and do music with their kids. They might then send their kids to a music group once a week, or then the kids might go to school and have music once a week, or they might be in the choir, or they might learn an instrument. So they might then, as they age, they might get involved in music as part of a form of education, but they're missing out on this whole lifelong opportunity to experience music creatively and emotionally and in a raw way and in a really connected way, because the parents don't feel like they can do music with their kids. I've talked to many parents about this. I've received hundreds of comments and messages and emails and DMs from parents around the world, especially mums, who feel like they can't sing to their children because they're embarrassed of the sound of their voice. They hold a lot of shame, or they don't want their children to learn how to sing badly. They think if they do music with their children will learn to sing out of tune or not be able to develop their own musical skills. And this is part of this whole cultural problem I was talking about, where we believe that we believe that some people are more musical than others. We believe that to be musical is some talent or skill that you have to develop, or some natural gift, and that it's just, none of it's true. Pre-colonization, all cultures did music together in community, and no one was considered, bad at music. So there's this whole problematic culture wrapped up in this, and people who are already adults already experience a sense of shame, feeling that they aren't musical enough. So I believe that is the biggest barrier. I think that just experiencing music in a playful way, even thinking about it in our heads, just having it playing at home, and engaging in lots and lots of different music-based sort of interactions like that is paramount. I don't think it has to be about going and having piano lessons. That really becomes then just about people who can afford it, and then it just throws more barriers in.
And also then their judgment comes in because of that whole thing with formal lessons, that the whole judgment thing comes in.
Yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden they're learning and practicing scales and Western all this Western colonial stuff that's all new and modern. And music, like if you look back throughout the whole history of humanity, music has been so much different to what we think music is now. There's so many different ways of practicing music. So I try and support parents to just do rhythm games with their kids, little clapping games like Miss Mary Mac and clippy clappy things, and elastics and skipping ropes, and that's rhythmic. That's rhythm right there. Hopscotch, it's rhythm. And just singing, anything that we would do to a newborn baby is going to support our brain to feel safe, and it's going to give our children beautiful musical experiences. So singing to our children, holding our children and rocking them while we sing, and once they get to 10 they might not want that, but there's ways that we can adapt. We can even use our voice melodically. We can be cautious of and implement more intonation in our voice so that it feels soothing, and we can put lullaby voice on so it feels safe the way we would with a plant or an animal or a newborn baby, because we know that allows the brain to feel safe.
Right. I truly believe, like Allison said, we are not using music like we did before. We need to pull it into our lives, not leave it for entertainers or people who make gazillions of dollars a year because they're talented, whatever that means. And we should use it every day. I want to share this real quick story, Allison. My grandmother, my German Oma, she hummed all the time. And I truly believe that part of her humming, that part of her ability to overcome so much hardship was humming. She would hum anything from Mozart to Wagner to nursery rhymes. That was her thing. And I grew up with that. My father and my uncles grew up with that in the middle of World War II and the post World War II world. And that kept them, I truly believe that her attitude, her energy coming from that humming must have had a lot to do with their ability to survive, because so many did not.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's astounding that it's really only been a couple of generations. That was only a couple of generations ago, but now no one hums, no one whistles. I mean, some people do, but that was common.
Yes.
And now it's not common. We laugh at people when we see them dancing in public or whistling. We don't laugh at them, but it's become very unusual. It was only a couple of generations ago that people were doing it to stay regulated and to experience joy at times when there was little of joy around them.
Joy, that's the ticket. Boy, that's Oma. She always said the one thing that you regret when you get to the end of your life is the times, the days that you did not express or experience joy by the time you get to the end of your life.
What a beautiful legacy
Yeah.
that she left. The other thing with humming and whistling is that it's a controlled breathing exercise, because as we hum out or whistle out, we expel that's it, all of our breath, and then we breathe in and we do it again. And it's the same with singing. So if when we use music as a tool for safety, when we sing beautiful long phrases or we sing slowly, we are just slowly expelling this long controlled breath and then breathing in and doing it again. And we all know how powerful that is for our vagus nerve and our nervous system and our brain and body. And that allows our muscles to relax and our heart rate to come down, and it tells our brain that we're safe. So humming and whistling and singing in all forms are really, really powerful for that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Allison. What a wonderful time that we've had here. How can people work with you if we have people who would like to tap into your wisdom?
You can find me by going to allisondavies.com.au. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. If you search for Allison Davies, you'll find me there. Allison Davies Music and the Brain.
I'll put all of those in our show notes to make sure people can reach you. Thanks again, Allison. I really appreciate your time and all of your knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Brain Health Matters. Be sure to subscribe with your favorite podcast service so that you can get all the latest episodes when they're released.